Commission October 23rd meeting. On the agenda today, we have items of interest from commissioners, followed by the director's report. Then we have the consent agenda, and on that is consideration of the minutes from September 25th and October 9th meetings. That will be followed by the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability Strategic Plan, Work Plan, and Budget. That is a work session, and then we'll be adjourned. Items of interest. Katie?
Last month, I was able to go on a couple of different, I don't know, it would be what you would call field trips if you were in school, but they were opportunities to go out into the community. And as a member of the Planning and Sustainability Commission. And one of them was the bus ride with the Fair Housing Council. And I just want to say that probably a lot of people in here have already done that bus ride. But if you have not, it's really, you get a lot out of it. There were three people who we would stop the bus and they would explain to us what was happening, what had happened in the community in that particular spot. One was Ed Washington, and he was a Metro counselor, and he was talking about the early days of World War II when there was a lot of discrimination in Portland. And then George Nakata gave us, who was 10 years old during World War II, talked to us about how the Japanese American families had been gathered up during that time and sent to camps. So it was really, it was a really very amazing trip, and it gives you a sense for how the city doesn't show its scars. You don't see where these things happen. There's maybe a plaque or something, a memorial sometimes, but very often not. And then also I was able to go to the Tribal Nation Summit, which, again, a very kind of impactful event with tribal elders giving their impression of what they can do for the future and what has happened to them in the past. So it was really, both of those events were really wonderful.
Thank you for attending and sharing.
All right.
Any other items of interest? Not seeing any. Joe, director's report?
We're about to start the budget process again, and this year, every year we have a budget advisory committee who works with the Bureau on setting priorities and reviewing our budget choices. And this year, a big part of that is to get that group up to speed to understand on the planning side our work program. So since we were thinking of the most representative group to pull from to build that committee this year, and came upon asking for a 3-person subcommittee of the PSC to take on that role, and they would be joined by the budget advisory committee typically includes people interested in land use and development and community, as well as sustainability. Remember, we're a Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, so carbon reduction and energy, as well as other sustainability, and 3 staff, the 2 represented staff and non-rep join the committee. It's probably a 2-meeting responsibility this time. And since we're going over the work plan tonight, that whole it allows us to not have to do that again with the whole committee. So if there were 3 of you who were interested and willing to take on that 2-meeting responsibility, a meeting at the end of November, probably a meeting in December is the second one. Yeah, and if there was still something hanging out there, there could be one more, but this year I think we could do it in 2. Okay. So,
so you just want people to email Julie if they're interested?
Yes, if you're willing to do that. We'll send you, we have tentative dates. We can share those with you as well. Okay.
That'd be helpful.
Okay.
What you mean by end of November?
Okay, yeah. So Mike, we'll send them out tomorrow. I'll send out an email. Thank you. Second thing is Southwest Corridor locally preferred alternative is on City Council next week. So they've already gone through the equitable development strategy, and the next step of the process is to hold a hearing and to vote on the LPA. So I believe that's next Thursday.
And I believe I'm scheduled to represent our recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Great, thank you. Next is consent agenda. Is there anybody like to pull anything for discussion?
Move adoption.
Second.
So moved. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? That passes.
Because I actually haven't opened the document
You
yet.
want to use the mic? Please.
I'll abstain because I honestly haven't opened the document.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the honesty. Okay, next item is the BPS strategic plan, work plan, and budget.
Actually, we start with introduction.
Is that working? Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Julia Thompson. I'm the Business Operations Manager at BPS, and I wanted to introduce you to Karen Guillen Chapman, who recently joined BPS as our Equity and Change Manager. I'm going to say a little bit about the process of finding this wonderful woman to join us in a leadership role at BPS. She's on the leadership team and the management team. We recruited for this position for a long time to find just the right person. You probably met Desiree Williams Raji, who was the city's first bureau-based equity manager and who led our development of equity work for the last 8 years. And we're thrilled to have Karen Guillen Chapman join us. She has an amazing background, having worked in both solid waste and recycling and land use and planning. She most recently came to us from Bureau of Development Services. Before that was at the Parks Bureau. She is a Tica, a Costa Rican, and I'm going to let her say more about what her thoughts are, but we're really looking forward to next year, her taking our 5-year racial equity work plan and updating that and working with staff on a full strategic update of that work and leading some of our community engagement practice. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from her over the next few years. Welcome, Karen.
Let's see if I can figure this out. All right. Okay, I'm on. So first and foremost, I thought I would share just a little bit about myself with you all and some hopes and aspirations that I have in this new role with this bureau. I've been a resident of Northeast Portland for over a decade, mostly in the Albina district, living near North Denver Avenue and the Interstate Corridor, and now along MLK and Rosa Parks Way. I'm also first-generation immigrant from Central America, as Julia stated, bicultural, bilingual. I'm a PSU alumna, receiving both my undergraduate degree and my graduate degree in urban and regional planning from the school right here. And my background does include, I started out after undergrad working for Hacienda CDC in affordable housing. I've also worked with PCRI and their Pathway 1000 initiative, have a strong passion for affordable housing. And I spent almost a decade, about 8 years, working in environmental services and sustainability, both with Metro Regional Government in their resource conservation and recycling program, as well as City of Gresham's, so have a lot of that sustainability work background. Most recently, I spent several years, I've been here at the City of Portland as a city employee for about 4.5 years, working on the equity program for the Parks Bureau and for development services under 2 equity managers, Art Hendricks and Dora Perry, both. So I've had some really good mentors, some really good experiences. I've had a lot of lessons learned, but this was an opportunity, a very unique opportunity to marry both my sustainability background that I acquired prior to my graduate degree and now my land use services and planning background since I've acquired that additional professional experience. And in addition, I find this bureau to be very unique in that it has an opportunity to influence citywide, some of the work we do around our built environment and livability and social justice. We often hear that at the city, some of our bureaus are a bit siloed and we work within our area of expertise. This tends to be a bureau that has a broad reach across other bureaus and an influence and a convener of other functions throughout the city within Bureau of Transportation, housing. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So I'm pretty excited about working with staff on what type of work culture they want and how they want to feel empowered within the workplace. But I found a group of staff here at BPS that are also looking to empower community, share power, and let community lead some of the vision of the city and lead some of the Bureau's work. So those are a few of the things I'm most excited about. And I thank you all. I'm pretty excited to have joined such a great team.
Welcome. Well, you are like amazingly well-rounded and seem perfect for the positions, and well-rounded in experience, I should add. So anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate the update and getting to know a little bit about your background and your hopes for the position in the future. Thank you very much.
So I wanted to go through our Bureau strategic plan. I'm going to switch over here so I can get through the pages. So who of you have already looked through this document before? Did Susan walk you through this?
She didn't walk us through it,
Okay.
but
You've
we
seen
have
it. Okay. So I think this will just set a nice context for the planning work plan that's ahead of you. So we released this in the spring. We did about probably a 10-month process with lots of internal and external stakeholders. And, whoops. How do I move through this? Is that how we do it? Okay. So the first couple pages just really set the context that we're working in. We open up a lot of presentations. I'm sure you've heard this more than a dozen times about in the next 17 years, by 2035, we're going to fit 123,000 more households and 140,000 new jobs into Portland. And so we're really working in the context of growth and moving forward equity, racial justice, and climate action within that. And that in this national political context, we really believe that local leadership, we need to lead from cities and states to get this work done. So in the context of growth and change, our mission is to, there's our vision, and our mission is to take action to shape the future of Portland, advance climate protection for a more prosperous, healthy, equitable, and resilient city. So again, if you've been on this commission for a while, you've heard those words many, many times. And we have 4 major types of work that we do. We set the big picture plans, the Portland Plan, the 2035 Comprehensive Plan, Climate Action Plan, Central City, and so forth. And then we work on the rules and code and policies, which you all review, to ensure that we stay on course with those plans. And then work that you probably hear less about is our voluntary and market-based action. This is really getting people in Portland to do the right thing. And then finally, we are sort of an R&D lab, and innovation happens here in that 4th bucket of work, like smart cities and looking at green building. And like Karen said, at its heart, BPS is a convener and a coordinator of complex projects and plans that balance multiple objectives. So I know you all can appreciate that. And we do all of that in collaboration. So one of the biggest updates for this plan on our last 3-year plan was that staff were asking us to get really clear about what our values were in the political context, locally and nationally. Staff needed to know, where did we stand on things? What are our operating principles? And so we went through a big staff input process, and we wanted to share these with you. So social justice has become such a huge, the center of a lot of the work that we're doing. And holistic thinking, excellence, compassion, collaboration, inclusive engagement, credibility, and future. So much we're looking at that 2035 horizon, but I think we're going to need to start updating that because that's coming right up. So that's the lens through which we see our work, and those are sort of the guiding values. And then we do a lot of measurement to see how are we doing getting toward the future that we want to see. So we measure progress. We have 3 big goal statements: 50% reduction in carbon emissions by 2035. We want to see 80% of Portlanders living in healthy, connected neighborhoods, and 100% of Portlanders have excellent recycling, compost, and garbage services. And then we also look at household prosperity, transportation, energy, environment, and equitable community engagement. So one of our goals internally over the next 3 years is to figure out how to put an equity lens on all of those goals, disaggregate those by race. But we realized when we tried to do that this round that we're not ready, and that's some work that we're training up staff to do. So finally, I wanted to just give you a quick look at our 8 key initiatives. This is on top of our ongoing work plan, which is the last 2 pages in the document, kind of shows all the other work that our staff have been doing and will continue to do for years. But these are the things that we're kind of putting the pedal down to make immediate progress on time-sensitive actions over the next 3 years. And they're complex. There's a lot of projects and programs nested within each of these key initiatives. So if you haven't yet, I think you'll really get a better sense for the complexity and breadth of our work if you look through each of those. So number 1 clearly is increasing housing options. Number 2, creating an efficient, low-carbon built environment. Grow vibrant, successful centers that serve all of those healthy, connected neighborhoods, building a 21st century central city, pursuing smart cities initiatives, increasing reuse, recycling, and composting, advancing inclusive prosperity, and improving watershed health and resiliency. So those are the things that I think you'll see staff are sort of hyper-focused on for the next 3 years as we work on the rest of our work plan, which, like I said, is on those last 2 pages. So for a bureau of about 105 people, it is mighty, the work plan that we have and ahead of us. Are there any questions on that strategic plan?
Doesn't appear so.
Okay.
Very clear. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, well, so for the rest of our discussion today, this is the opportunity to have the Planning and Sustainability Commission give us feedback on ideas for weigh in on the work program that we are looking at for the next fiscal year. And actually, typically, while we are doing this work plan forecast, we try to work over 3 years. So we pick up what we're finishing. We also have a sense of how we're moving and what we're going to. So you got a copy of this with your document today. We're replacing it because there were some not significant but confusing mistakes on the typical funding. And the way this comp plan is, this work forecast is organized is around those topics in the strategic plan. So you'll see, you'll have a group such as on the first page labeled comprehensive planning. This is that sort of function that in the comp plan, or in the strategic plan, excuse me, we call long range planning. Big picture planning, the comp plan, the central city plan, the Portland plan, and those are foundational guiding documents for the city. And what I was proposing to do today is this. I want to create the opportunity for discussion around your ideas, but also sort of give you a quick scan of the work program. So I thought we could discuss it in these big groups of for instance, the comprehensive planning. If you turn to the next page, the next big group, but it's got 5 subparts, is Healthy Connected City. And I'm just going to describe in general the intent and the focus of that whole bundle of activities, and leave it to you all to sort of scan through the projects and see how that triggers any questions you have or any ideas you have about pieces of work that you would wish that were part of this work program and that you're not seeing. Does that work for folks? Okay. So let's start with comprehensive plan. And as I said, this is the long-range planning piece, and you can see one of our core sort of functions and core sort of sources of leverage is the development and maintenance and upkeep of the comprehensive plan and its related codes. So some part of a lot of the work of the Bureau touches on this activity. The kind of things that we have, and just to orient you to the table again too, that you'll see the column labeled typical funding. This is just to give you a sense of the variety of sources of funding that we depend on to pay for these activities. So general fund, overhead is just a different version of general fund, but our overhead funded work is work that we can make the argument to the city benefits as a service, bureaus across the city. Interagencies, this is where we partner up with other bureaus who will fund our activities. One-time general fund, which is in the budget process, we have an ongoing base funding. And then the one-time fund is funds that the city council in any given year will make available for projects. So if they want you to undertake this particular project, you tell them this is how much and how long. And rather than commit that as an ongoing fund, you could get this sort of one-time funding for the completion of that project. The ones without any code in them are unfunded. And then we also get grant funding and sort of other sources. That's what this GFIA is, okay? And if you look at the far right column, this budget analyst, this is just sort of to give you a sense, once again, this is scannable. Is it something that's underway and we're sort of, for our purposes, at least at this point, we're assuming that we're going to see it through. So it's less available for something that we could cut and switch the resources. However, I got to say, very few things are absolutely uncuttable, but this just shows you a commitment and or momentum. The green, I think, is self-explanatory. One that we think has a particular, because of alignment for either what's happening in the city or the economy or what's happening in in the private sector or in other bureaus, an opportunity that we need to seize or we would like to. The yellow is where it's directly a city council priority that they've given us in the processes that have led up to the development of the budget. So that's the setting. Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
curious question.
Mm-hmm.
When do you, God forbid, when do you start planning on for the next comp plan? When does that whole activity restart?
You know, the gap in our last comp plans, comprehensive comp plan update was a decade, right? Wasn't it?
From adoption?
No, gosh, it was more than that. It was 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years. I think it was 20. Yeah.
20, yeah, 20 plus. So we don't want to do that. And actually,
That's kind of why I was asking.
yeah, I think hopefully we would be gearing up for a comprehensive plan update by 2030. But you know, maintenance of the comp plan changes all during that period. Like once we get through the amendment, once we get the appeals settled, we're going to embark on through a variety of means, area plans or corridor plans, amendments to the comprehensive plan. So what we have to do, though, is keep updating our employment lands and our employment opportunity assessment. We still have to update our findings and our information about the city so that we can make those changes and defend them. So there's kind of this rolling analysis that takes place, and then periodically you stop, start the snapshot and reset. And so that would be about 2030 is my guess.
Thanks, Joe.
Sure. Okay, so first group, we ready? Comprehensive planning, long-range planning, maintenance of the comprehensive plan. You guys have been through this extensively over the last few years. And you can see in here, there's types of activities that are the zero is on each of these boxes is kind of the core program. There will be the way we're staffed is on the planning side, we have about 40 planners and about 10 in technical services. Dedicated staffing for a function like this is probably what shows up in the org chart, maybe 1.5 people. It's not big, but to get the work done, we're drawing from across the Bureau. So we have the appeal we got to settle. We've got to start some of that analysis that I talked about already, the buildable lands inventory, the EOA, as we're heading out of the load that was created by the comp plan and the central city plan, we're feeling the need to refresh or take to an evaluation of the Portland plan. because that was a 5-year strategy that set sort of lasting, but would have been really lasting goals for us. And so, especially around where those actions and objectives touched equity, we want to go in and do a refresh so that we can just remind City Council of how we have done as a city with regards to what we call for in that strategy. So that's the general gist of what this bundle of activities is about.
Any questions? Andre, then Mike.
You go ahead. The Portland plan, I was thinking about this in a different way, that it would be good to go back and test the values. Do they actually, is equity still have the same meaning before you get to saying, how does it intersect with the objectives in the comp plan? In that sense of prosperity, does it have the same meaning? And some of those, because the times were just different at that time. And to say, does Portland still have the same values around how they view equity, how they view prosperity, how they view those things? Because it gets to those decisions, I think, that the commission will be making later about whether or not displacement is really an equity issue, is prosperity, a lot of the, how you use that equity lens, how you use prosperity, how you use health, and how you view health, how we view education, and the values of whether or not we viewed education the same way in 2010 and 2012 as you do in 2020.
Yeah, that's great. And you'll see, when it's a little bit difficult. These topics come up again and again throughout the work program. So you're going to see things relevant to that topic, Andre, as we go forward in the other parts of this as well. But that's what you described is kind of what we're after, going back and checking ourselves.
Going back to one of our favorite topics, under update economic opportunities analysis, and I'm sure it will pop up elsewhere in this work plan. Is there any thought about pursuing issues related to Goal 9 in terms of an exception, some of the legal analysis that we're going to be forced to face again?
Every time we update the EOA, it raises that issue.
Exactly.
And what Mike's saying is and the update of the EOA that we would be looking at, one of the main targets are going to be reevaluation of harbor lands and that whole sort of economic forecast, because these things, they do change. And that changes by changing. I guess is the answer. That would always come up when we do the EOA, but it's actually one of the analyses that we have to keep up on a 5-year rotating basis.
All right.
I don't have my goals all memorized. What's goal 9?
The industrial land.
Right. Mike's making the point that, when we do but the other things that change regarding that is we're going to have a new metro forecast shortly, actually, in a year. And it's probably going to be, the early discussions are that it's showing fewer households and fewer jobs, but over this period of time, there is a fluctuation of that. So both of those parts of the equation figure into this.
So when we're looking at updating the buildable lands inventory and the economic analysis, just want to make sure that there's a critical look at how the various development restrictions we have potentially limit our goal of increasing the density of jobs on the existing lands. I think some of the work that was done in Lentz suggested that on some of the smaller industrial parcels, those were unlikely to flip to a different industrial use given the cost of changing that. So just making sure we have a good handle on how realistic getting more jobs on the existing sites is.
Cool. You all ready for the next section? So next is a topic that is really one of the hearts of what we did in the comprehensive plan, which is a group of activities, a group of work focused on advancing a healthy, connected city. And there's sort of 5 bundles that are nested within this. So there's a lot in here, so I'll go a little more slowly. But the first of these bundles is our centers and corridors work. So it's place-based, focused on growth, focused on either targeting investment or managing growth or building community capacity to have the development that the market does locate in a place contribute to what we were trying to accomplish with Healthy Connected City. So typically this work has some specific places where we're working. You can see in this plan, the one that we have, and it's actually grant funded. This is one, when it's related to development, we have one of our better sources of grant funding that we can get our hands on, which is a Metro construction excise tax funded grants. So it allows us to be doing this work in Rosewood, which is part of our foray into East Portland work that you'll see again next. And then this is also where we do our transit corridor work. And so we're continuing to work on Southwest. We're going to be tracking and seeing what's going on with Division. And we've been asked to work with Portland Streetcar Inc. on the next generation of streetcar line planning. So.
I'm going to go this way since I saw your hand up first,
Okay.
Michelle.
So with the streetcar planning, will that include the type of housing analysis on a smaller scale that happened with the light rail line?
Yes.
Okay.
And really what that one is about as much as anything too is the line, the first of the lines that they're looking at would go from somewhere in Hollywood, go from Hollywood some way to Montgomery Park. So it affects both housing production and it could affect our employment and jobs goals and land use that we set for ourselves. So there's a bunch of issues embedded in that.
Okay. And then bikes and things, those come into it as well? Or?
Well, this first stage is really just trying to get our handle on whether or not the alignment, what the impacts could be of that alignment on our land use expectations, and if that's consistent with what we thought we were trying to accomplish. This is kind of like a first, this is nowhere near construction, this line. This is a first level look at where it might go next.
No? Yeah, go ahead.
Is the under number 5 upzone around transit stations, is that including those included in the Southwest corridor, or maybe specifically those?
It could be, yeah. Part of what part of what came out of the MOU that was adopted between the city and TriMet for Southwest Corridor, which really was about how land that TriMet might purchase, develop the corridor could end up as affordable housing sites for the city's use, is they've asked us to take a hard look at all the transit stations and see if there should be more development around them, and also that we should get rid of self-storages.
Okay. I guess I'd make a pitch that there, even with now that the alignment has come into focus, the opportunities, there's a lot of single-family housing within very close distance of those stops. And
well, the place we're starting first on this work is the West Portland Town Center, so that's mostly commercial, but I hear what you're saying, yeah. So our work next year is not going to tackle those single-family house areas along the corridor, but we've got West Portland Town Center and some other locations there.
Go ahead, Chris.
So just commenting on the next streetcar corridor, I think a big part of that discussion is what is the future of the area north of Vaughan going to be? Is that going to be relatively low density warehouse industrial? Is it going to be higher density employment, or are we actually going to look at housing there, right? I mean, there's some big questions to answer in that area, right? I know Eric's starting to wrap his head around that. So it'll be an interesting discussion. I'm more curious about Macadam. What's the intent of looking at Macadam? Because, you know, at one time we thought that was going to be the next streetcar, and you know, that would obviously lead into a different direction for that district. But why is it on the agenda now?
Oh, it's on the agenda because we found that there are some, we could adjust the zoning that's on the Macadam corridor right now. It's like from the 70s or the 80s, and it actually does provide an impediment for the type of development that we think is more typical of a corridor like that now. So we've wanted to go back through and sort of deal with that. We had proposed doing that when we were doing the South Reach River Plan because they're right next to each other. We could have done it as a single piece of work. But what this is illustrating too, as you see, there's no source of funding at all identified for that. The grants we went for 2 different grants to try to fund that, and were not successful. It's something valuable to do, but it's not our highest priority, and a little bit that's why it's pushed out to 2021. On this list too, I just want to be sure that people are thinking in these terms. This is a forecast, and it's more work than we're going to be able to do and undertake. So it's sort of a universe of work that we think is consistent with accomplishing these big strategic pieces of our work. And it's going to depend on funding. It's going to depend on the pace of progress on some of the other pieces. But it's also really a critical piece to get the equity lens applied. How we make those choices amongst this piece of work is changeable, malleable.
If I remember right on Macadam, it's an area that is very close in, yet perhaps has less density. Is that the right way to put it? I'm trying to remember what it was, but
It's got
curious.
density, height, disconnect. Yeah, it's got,
Maybe
and these are not huge moves. This is why we sort of would want to do it, but you touch Macadam and it becomes a bigger project. But it's not it's a place that we could get more out of that corridor if we were to step in and with the community, take a look at those entitlements. That's why we wanted to do it. We've been waiting to try to get to this one for years. But it's also in Southwest, so it may not be, if we're doing the Southwest corridor and Macadam, how do you set priorities? You have to distribute this work geographically. This is what we're asked to do. So that's the kind of trade-offs that we've had to look at on that one.
Ben and then Jeff.
A clarification and a question. Clarification on the budget analysis is if the box is white, does that mean that the project is not yet funded and we're hoping to get funding in the next fiscal year cycles?
What that means is the budget analysis, it's an interesting how we've labeled it. The budget analysis is where we feel that there are, being not colored in implies that it has less, it may not be less of a priority, but it's less momentum behind it. We can make a choice to do that and not do that, and it will affect outcomes, but it won't affect other related projects, or it won't affect city council priorities or things we already have underway. Every year when we do the budget, we're going through cuts, so we have to find things that, even though valuable to do, we just aren't going to be able to have the resources to do. And one of the things that makes a project more fungible in that regard is that we don't have other things hanging on it in terms of strategically advancing our centers and corridors work. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's the first one column, the typical funding. If that's blank, that means the typical funding doesn't necessarily mean these are committed. If it says grant, it means we have a grant. But if it's blank, it means I'm not sure how we pay for it. But typically, if we find something worth doing, we're going to get it in our general fund, or we're going to go try to land a grant for it.
So for the first bullet, the planning support work on the Southwest corridor, is that something that is identified but perhaps not at the highest priority level?
No, Ben, that's just an anomaly of having a bulleted list underneath it. If you see all the pieces, we have grant funding for at least one of those pieces. We have an IA for another of those pieces. Two others we're just using our general fund are. So that's a graphical confusion. Sorry. Okay, next box.
I think there's a couple questions. Jeff, and then Katie.
One minor one bigger one. So does gray mean it's happening?
No, gray means that's
Not
when we
happening.
would like to give it a shot to have it happen, yes.
The white means it's happening? Or?
No, gray means it's happening. Gray means the work is we would be working on that. If it's
so
funded.
Just as an example, you said West
if we could-
Portland Town Center doesn't have funding, yet it's in gray. So do you have funding or?
West Portland Town Center has GR under typical funding. So we have a Metro grant to undertake.
Oh, you do?
We
Okay.
do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's
Let
going to
me,
happen.
and I'll interject this here. I was going to wait, but you mentioned priorities, and this is a priority. When we had our retreat, whenever that was, a year or so ago, one issue we spent some time talking with was how do we as a planning commission have some influence on what is high priority versus low priority and the budget implications of different work programs. Is this a big budget item? Is this a small one? A lot of FTE, not a lot of FTE. And I'm still wondering that same thing I was wondering at our retreat. Is there a role for us not to just be told, here's all the various work programs we're thinking about, some we're doing, some are higher priority, some are lower priority. Is there a role for this commission? And maybe the answer is it doesn't seem to work well for this commission to discuss and have some influence on what should be a priority. For example, just to give one, West Portland Town Center. And Chris raised the question, that's Barber Boulevard. Why are we doing it? At some point, the Bureau applied to Metro for a grant. We were never part of a discussion about, yes, apply for that grant. We as a commission feel that's a good priority. It's a good request to make to Metro, or maybe we would have said, on a scale, that's a low priority. Are there other things you could apply for? So I don't mean this to it's not second guessing you. It's more, should we as a commission be part of that discussion? Because we haven't been in the several years I've been on the commission. Personally, I feel there should be a way to create that role for the commission. We obviously haven't done that as a commission. And the discussion at the retreat was, I thought there was sort of a lot of nodding at the heads that we would as a commission like some way to get a handle on all these work programs. And you used the term priority a couple of times, Joe. Well, that's a high priority. That's not a high priority. That's not a commission level decision. Should it be?
I think that's what we're trying to do tonight, is have a discussion like that. So this is part of a discussion that puts that kind of recommendation, or at least suggestion or input, out there for the commission.
Can we have a box and we can tell you priority 1, 2, 3, 4? I mean, how are we going to do that? I'm wondering as I'm listening. Because the questions are more like, what is the program? Is at some point.
Well, I think tonight it would be great if you just saw something that you thought was absolutely not a priority, to hear about that, or something that's missing that you really think should be. That would be useful.
It's a concern.
Well, also, were you mentioning earlier a committee where you wanted 3 members of? Wasn't that?
Yeah, the Budget Advisory Committee sort of is another chance to follow up on this discussion that we're sort of laying the ground for tonight.
So do you have anything else there, Jeff, to add, or?
Not for the moment. I just raised the concern, and I hope this turns into a realistic. It's kind of hard to for me personally, to get a handle on all these work programs and begin to think of where are the priorities. Maybe as we go forward in the future, there'll be a way to make it somewhat more manageable for commissioners to get a handle on, because with 75 or 80 programs, it's awfully hard to know how to prioritize. So, but thank you for the information.
And I guess if I was to say what's embedded in here in terms of giving you guidance of priority that we've picked, for instance, in our Healthy Connected City strategy, we've kind of got 5 big groups of activity, 5 sort of strategic sort of bundles of the types of activities that we have decided that we're going to be undertaking. Those actually flowed from what we all decided and discussed in the comprehensive plan too. So that's one sort of act of priority building, is to just even have limited to things that are relevant to those topics. And then within there are the specific projects that may or may not seem like they're on target for matching the priorities that we put, or the policies that we put in the comprehensive plan.
So perhaps just, I don't know if this is going to help you or not, Jeff, to frame it in the way I've been looking at this is, for instance, there's certain things that are, as Joe just said, in progress. We're not going to make a whole lot of influence, but I think if you feel like it's a misguided step, state it out loud and Joe can hear it and think about it as they're kind of working through budget things. Some of them are council driven, some of them are driven through comp plan things, and so there's only going to be so much room that they can maneuver. I think others are just not going to be on here, and if they're related to, which when you're all finished, I've got some that aren't on here that I'm going to bring up, so bring them up. Katie, I suspect, is going to bring up some, and I think the challenge goes back to Joe to then think through, okay, is there a way to start fitting that in, and how does that work with the programs that are either in progress or not? Macadam was one we just talked about, right? It was a part of potentially a program, and they made a choice so far to not. If we all felt Macadam was a priority, we could say, Joe, figure out how to make it a priority again. You know what I mean? So I think, for whatever it's worth, I think that's the whole point of the discussion.
And it's a lot. So this is the same problem that the Budget Advisory Committee faces. It's a lot.
Katie was next, and then Mike, and then you, Eli. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I was looking at all this, and I did notice East Portland coming up once or twice, but it was so distributed, and in some cases I found it like, for example, grow vibrant, successful centers and corridors, and then the program prepare equitable development action plans for specific centers and corridors, and then some things are mentioned, but I guess I'd love to see Gateway and Lentz spelled out. And perhaps you haven't gotten to that point.
Have not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
So I apologize. It's coming sequentially. It's sort of how it's organized by these areas of work. So maybe if we just on, for instance, this healthy connected city topic, I cut it shorter and just get through all of them, then you could see that whole bundle. It'll be more to mine through, but that is we just happen to categorize this next group that we're talking about really is focused on that kind of work you just said, Katie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just a couple things that
So you haven't heard about that yet?
No, I haven't. And I was reading ahead.
Yeah.
But I just would, I've been advocating partly as part of the East Portland Action Plan for a quadrant equivalent plan for East Portland. And when I see the work kind of parceled out into different bundles, that worries me a little bit because I could see it kind of dribbling in. And I'd really like to see the work for East Portland be done in a really coherent way as a total plan. So that's
a really good comment, and it's useful in that this is the way that we have built and tracked the work program. Well, since we've been working on the comp plan, so for a few years, but it has that inherent weakness. It doesn't really represent the effort that I think we agree that we want to bring to East Portland. So breaking this sort of scheme is a better way to communicate that and make that clear is a good suggestion.
Thank you. I'd also love it if you'd name it somewhere along the line because it seems like it's very reassuring and it's actually a good way for City Council to be introduced to the idea of an East Portland plan if it's got a name on it. The other thing that I was wondering about was FTE. There's a lot of projects in here, but it's hard to tell the scale of the projects. So did you leave that off or do you not do that or, just...
No, it's just
number of hours
like
or
sort of too much information already.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's each of these represents a work program of multiple FTE.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are my questions. Yeah, and I'm really interested and excited about the fact that we're starting to talk now about a big plan for East Portland, and so. I'm just always going to be following up on that. Thank you.
Eli?
I was one of the head nodders that Jeff was describing, and I can say that the Budget Advisory Council I was on last time, and I shared this with Joe, was not really a forum to talk about big picture stuff because there's a whole question of who's that group representative of, are you really making big budget priority plays with, such a small group of stakeholders? I think it is more our group here to have that discussion. And I went into this discussion thinking that I've already suggested some ideas for new topics, and like a few of us here will probably have some new ones to toss out here. But I would love to, I'm not sure the best way to go through this, but as you were suggesting, Joe, to go through relatively swiftly so that we have a chance as a commission to talk with each other, and you can be a fly on the wall, and we can have a direct conversation in our commission about what things stand out as priorities that maybe got missed in this plan, or maybe don't need to be done on this plan, and then we can let staff know what we think for them to evaluate after we've done that.
Yeah, that may be actually a more fruitful way to do this. I know it's a lot of stuff. I wanted to make sure people were able to track sort of how it's structured, how it's what information's in here, but it is built around big themes that it may be more fruitful to do what Eli just suggested.
Sure.
Want to try it?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so let's just go through the rest of this Healthy
I'm
Connect.
sorry, Mike had a comment.
Oh, sure.
No, I think I agree with Eli. I think this is the appropriate level that we're looking at. I really would worry about micromanagement at some point. I think we can have our conversation. People can participate in the budget committee. We've got 3 spaces. People want to dig in deeper, but I think this is the appropriate level, personally, in terms of detail.
Okay.
Big picture.
Okay, so Healthy Connected City. We just went through centers and corridors. So next bundle is about complete and equitable neighborhoods. And in here, you're going to see the Eastport, in this work program, we are trying to follow through on the discussions that we've been having as a commission and in other venues around East Portland. There's a whole, the push by East Portland Action Plan and through the work that you all have been doing through the long-range planning to get more activity in city activity, development activity, and planning activity in East Portland has been successful in the regards that there's a boatload of things happening out there, but it feels and may properly be described as not totally coordinated towards a strategic purpose of that's what we're trying to accomplish with East Portland in East Portland. So this project number 1 there is about undertaking that activity, where the cities with the bureau stepping up to both do projects like Rosewood with Prosper Portland, but also take up this coordinating role and also grow out of that in working with East Portland Action Plan, be it a big picture plan or more strategic, sort of focusing on the places in East Portland where we've got sort of the social capital, the neighborhood progress initiative areas and others, Gateway, to implement the plans that we've just been doing through the comp plan and others to do that East Portland work. I think that our intent is to try to grow this and to be a significant focus of what we're doing next year. We've already put together a team with the resources that we even have to start that work. And the person who we're hoping to sort of head that up is starting work Monday. Anita Yap, who's going to be running the district planning program. So this is that kind of work. And you can see in here, other than East Portland, it's not, there are no other places where we're focusing right now for something that rises to the scale of a project. We got work everywhere because district planners are involved all over the city on as needed basis, but under lifting up a significant projects that's focused on an area with a community. The one priority that's reflected here is East Portland. And we've taken on the responsibility because of that East Portland focus, not just to do Rosewood and Rossi, which were up in the previous list, but in this one also be a coordinating role in following up on the Lentz floodway stabilization project that Michelle was working on.
Can I ask a question related?
Yep.
Okay, so that's great. I saw that E6, I think, talked about or one of these other ones talked about updating Johnson Creek Plan District, which was something that came up in that Lentz discussion, and it's got a green code, so it's, you know, missed opportunity if we don't do project, but there's no, I guess, money or necessarily.
Yeah, we have to
momentum behind it right now.
find money for it.
So during that process, I know the state, for example, asked what can they do. So what's sort of the mechanism for discussion about going to other people for money to support these things?
Well, that's what we're embarked on now for this environment. The reason this is other on that particular topic is that it's environmental work, it's e-zone work, it's floodway work. That's technical work for us. We have 2 people who do that work, and they're updating the e-zone maps across the entire city right now, and doing the river plan. So that's where the previous commitment of resources has gone. So as we ramp up to do this work in Johnson Creek, we just have to find the opening or the funding to put a team together to go to do that piece of code work.
Okay.
BES, the Environmental Services, has an enterprise source of funds that we might be able to use for this. So I have to go raise funds.
And I can ask the state to call you?
Yes,
All right.
especially if they have money.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yep.
Just real quickly, on the district plans, these are not like the Killingsworth plan that were previous, like the Albina plan. These are more quadrant plans, I'm trying to distinguish between the previous whole set of plans and what you're bringing forward. And just as a second question, institutional zoning on high schools.
I know, but we have a meeting with the Portland Public Schools next week where they've been after this kind of zoning tool for a while, and it's will come in and be arguing that it's creating impediments for them to proceed with school modernization and the like. So doesn't have funding. We have a tool. We know it could be of interest. It's going to be a big project because you touch a high school. It gets into a very local kind of set of issues, and you need to run a process where you're respectful of both the institution and the neighborhoods, right? So it's a lot of work. So it's not, you see, it's not funded. It's not a priority for us, but it could become a priority. But if they may want to help pay to get it done, and if that was going to fit within a work program and we saw the benefits in it, we would all try to do that. See what I'm saying? Like a lot of our work program comes from the outside as well, and we need to be able to be responsive to some of that. So that's what that one is. Parks conditional use permits is in the same boat. It's perceived and real code impediments. Okay, the next group. So that's complete neighborhoods. Mostly that's East Portland. The heart of that is 21st Century Central City. That's our Central City 2035 plan follow-up. You can see that the work there is around some of the things that we discussed in getting the Central City 2035 plan through here, which is FAR transfers and the inclusionary housing program. But really the core of that work is we're updating the Central City fundamental design guidelines and we're continuing to work on the Green Loop. And then the other thing that happens is this is also a program where we are participating in and trying to help what we put into the comprehensive plan in our zoning code get implemented through the master plans for Broadway Corridor, the post office site, the master plan for OMSI, the master plan for their Clinton Station. These are developer-driven master plans, but we need to show up to be able to shape their outcomes. Okay. E, protect natural resources in Willamette River. So this is our Goal 5, Goal 15 work. Here at Southreach is the main piece of work in here. BIOP, which is to deal with the FEMA lawsuit and the change in floodplain mapping, and E-zones, which is that citywide remapping to protect our natural resource that we identified as part of the comp plan. Part of the comp plan updated the natural resource inventory, so we want to come back in with the code to protect it. There's other projects that are in there that are queued up, possibly, that have been gotten on our list through a variety of sources that you can see down below. And then the last one, and then this will be the end of this section, is about historic resources. And here we're updating the code right now for historic resources, but we're also sort of on the cusp of what could be a very big change in how we do historic districts in the city, which is if we can get state authorization to have local historic landmarks districts, we can create a path that's not the one we have now, which depends on national Department of Interior historic preservation processes to create landmark districts, and all that is outside the control of the city. So that's really the heart of the issue that we experienced in Eastmoreland, in Laurelhurst, and Irvington. These are outside, the city doesn't have a process to create a historic district. We're precluded at the state level. If we had that, we could make one that we could manage better, we could tailor better in terms of the level of regulation that we bring to it. We may or may not have special design guidelines that are extensive or not. Under the federal one, that's out of our hands. So those are the two big moves that are in this program. So that's healthy. So healthy connected city bundle. So I'll pause there.
Do you want to maybe just looking at 6
Oh,
o'clock?
Keep going.
I think just give us an overview of everything on here, and then we'll just move to discussion. I guess the next, or we've got to stop there, have a discussion, and then
Okay.
either get everybody to stay later than 6:15, or
Right.
put it on another agenda.
Well, let's try just to go through the rest and scan it as we go. Is this adequate? Is that okay?
Okay.
Housing and economy is we know we have a significant amount of housing work in our ECDEV work. So G is about increasing housing options, is this bundle of work, and this is where better housing by design and residential infill is. The big idea that's in here there's two things, is this notion of a citywide housing strategy with the Housing Bureau. We have policies and sort of a look that we've done, we do periodically for affordable housing production in the city. And through the comp plan, we did a forecast about residential development needs, but they don't reside in a single place as a sort of a comprehensive look to accomplish affordability, the price levels, these other sort of objectives we have in our comp plan. What do we need to accomplish from housing production? So this would bring those two pieces together. It would be a partnership with us and the Housing Bureau to do that. It's not funded now, but we, both Housing Bureau and the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, we're starting to see the value of doing this and may be moving it towards to be a featured project in the next work program. And then you can see there's follow-up for residential infill and better housing by design in that bundle. Let's see, now I'm getting lost. So next is equitable low carbon. This H, group H is our ECDEV work, and mostly here what we're doing is building the foundation to understand how well our policies and our codes are working on affecting industrial and job production. What actually are the job production numbers that are coming from our different industrial and employment land uses, and then there's some specific projects in there. Number 7 on there is that it could be a metro-funded corridor look at the industrial lands along the Columbia corridor, both in Portland and on the Washington side, and will depend on whether or not Metro can organize the funding for that. And then the I is our code package work, which is continuing to wrap up on design overlay and move into the next generation of code work that we might do with just a few things identified at this point. Community engagement and action. Here is how we are working on our engagement with the neighborhoods as well as other community organizations and stakeholders. This is a practice that we did so much during the last set of years doing these long-range plans that we need to improve, I think, and to be more effective and more respectful of the communities we're working in, and also to help us develop a model of community-led planning as we do things like these plans in East Portland. Smart cities is the activities that we're doing that are related to data and the Internet of Things and how it affects the future of the city. Mostly we're working on air quality and, as I said, an open data policy, and then operations is our nuts and bolts.
Great.
Okay.
So perhaps we'll just open it up for comment and just kind of go around the horn for comments and feedback. Or just whoever wants to start. How about that? Chris, you have your hand up.
I've never been shy.
Nope, we appreciate that.
So I think two big thematic comments. I very much second Katie's call for focus on East Portland, and I'd love to see this called out as a marquee project for, I don't know what we call it, an area plan, some kind of big, bold plan for East Portland. I know if I look at the parallel in transportation with East Portland in Motion project, PBOT basically generate a list that the advocates could then go advocate to get funded. And I think that's part of what Katie wants is, a vetted plan that we can then look at the action item list and go off and fight for those action items to get funded. And I'd love to see that be a major thrust for the Bureau and the Commission for the next several years. The other, I'll go back to my passion area, transportation. I see bits and pieces of it here, but one of the things we need to do as a city is figure out how we actually make the mode shift we're planning on happen. And I don't see a connection of the threads here of the things we can do. We got bike parking, that's good. We got some other things over here, but there's nothing ties together how we're going to keep pushing our land use plans in such a way that they facilitate the mode shift that we're counting on for our sustainability goals and our quality of life goals and so many other goals in the comp plan and the Portland plan. So those are my two thoughts.
Eli?
Well, continuing on the East Portland theme, I think I agree this should be a major topic, and I'm particularly interested in the connectivity issues out there, which it feels like we've just been dancing around the edges on that with the, the residential info project doesn't touch it, even though most of East County is zoned in when that covers, and Better Housing by Design touches it a little bit, and that's where it's actually pulled into the project. But even there, I think even if the most aggressive things get adopted as part of that proposal, when development pressure hits East County, we're not going to see the streets go through. I don't have a low confidence that would happen. So I think that figuring out it would involve PBOT and some financial modeling probably to figure out, and lessons from other cities. How do we actually get the street network to connect through in areas that much of it's zoned single family, some of it's multi-dwelling zone. I see that as a sort of a key part of that project that we've danced around the edges on, but needs more attention. It also has to do with mode split because, we just can't let that huge chunk of our city, as it gets developed out, be an area where you have to use a car for 75% of your trips. That's just like a terrible outcome in terms of climate and transportation, and we don't yet have a tool in place to make that happen. So I have the other topic I have is more on historic and design stuff, but I'm happy to hold off on that if anyone else in any East County ideas.
Keep going.
I guess I'd suggest
dump it out there.
Dump it all out, and then
Sure.
people can go kind of, I agree or I disagree.
Okay, yeah. So there's another area we've danced around with a little bit, but I want to see us take the bull by the horns. I had a really good meeting that I dropped in on with the Historic Landmarks Commission, and feel like there's a nice area of overlap interest there to try and do a code project that would probably reduce some heights in some parts of the city. So there's a zoning component, and also clarify and probably reduce some authority of that commission to try and reduce the delta between what we've approved in terms of what can be built in some of those areas and what the commission feels comfortable approving. And my pitch for it is that I think the current system hurts all parties. I think that right now, I remember when I first had the daylight going off in my head, we were looking at the inner east side as part of the central city plan, and we were looking at heights up to 150 feet. I'm not sure how exactly high, and the commission was saying they can't approve anything over 75. And I just realized they've got the power. When a project comes through, they can just decide it's 75 feet, regardless of what we put the height at. And I think the outcome going forward is that the design commission and its landmarks also will be bypassed. People go straight to city council, so they'll be disempowered by that process. I think that developers will have no idea what they can build on these portions of the city because there's such a huge amount subject to discretion. And I think that the planning commission can't really figure out how many people are going to live there, how many businesses are going to be there, because whatever we put as a FAR height may or may not translate into practice when projects come online. And city council is going to have to get frustrated as everything keeps coming to them on appeal, and they had to be arbiters in this situation. So I recognize that this is a new code chunk, and as I heard from staff, we have great staff on the landmark side. It's like the next thing to do in a few years. I would love to see that project come faster as an implementation of both those and the discussions between Landmarks Commission and our commission, so that we don't have this trend where those commissions get ignored and or maybe not, maybe listened to once, but people going straight to city council again and again. I think that's a sad outcome. So I guess I'm making the pitch that this is something that I think that we should try and prioritize sooner rather than later, and that it is some element with compromise on all sides. No one probably would be totally happy how the outcome is, but that maybe some of the heights come down in those districts, and maybe some of the authority is changed for those commissions.
So in the interest of time, we've got like 5 minutes, and I want everybody to have a chance to kind of get their ideas out. Perhaps just kind of quickly say, like, I kind of support some of the things I've been hearing, but maybe not belabor it, and then kind of raise your new topic and try to be succinct with your discussion on that. So Katie, I saw your hand up next.
Yes, I'll be succinct. H2, which is explore creating economic mobility and middle wage job strategies. I know it's not really funded. That's big, and that's really one of the anti-displacement strategies that East Portland Action Plan came up with. So I'd like to see more emphasis on that. And then also in G, which is housing and economy, it'd be great if there was a project to evaluate anti-displacement strategies rather than just measuring the displacement that's happening and refining that or predicting it is evaluating actual anti-displacement strategies, things that would.
Yeah, that's G5.
Is that G5?
Yeah, yeah, we share that observation. That
All right,
we're beyond
great.
the point
I'm
of
glad
just
it's on
doing
there. I
analysis.
didn't really
I don't know
realize
what
it.
we do
Thank
with
you.
it, but yes.
Thanks. Jeff, Ben,
Around.
Andre.
I guess, I mean, I agree with Eli on, for example, the historic preservation code rewrite strikes me as a higher priority, but I don't know higher than what. So I don't know if we were to line up 3 or 4 or 5 work programs that are currently on the table. I'm not sure if I would still go with historic preservation, but I agree that's one I'm a little bit involved in. It's been launched. And I guess just to pick a bigger topic for thematic purposes, I think housing right now is the city's top priority on all of this list. I mean, there's just a lot of activity at all levels, state, local, politically, about housing. And while G kind of lists programs that affect the housing crisis, I would make those sort of a priority, but I also would like to see sort of, and maybe this is in there in tracking the housing production and growth trends, and it's in promoting development of new housing. So I'm sort of scattered here, but so we're doing RIP. We're doing better housing by design. We're trying to do a deep dive into anti-displacement, or what does that even mean? How big is our displacement problem? Is it, what programs should we use to respond to it with? Those are all housing-related issues. We need a housing vision. We need to be able to look at all these components, and perhaps it's working with the Housing Bureau, and say, here's what we think we need to be doing. I don't think adopting RIP it's a tool, but it's not going to really move the dial on the housing problem in the next year or two. And it seems to me we should be looking at everything under G and trying to pick what in that we can actually move the dial in the next year or two. So I would just make housing a higher priority. Again, there's lots of worthwhile projects in this list of 60 or 70 projects, but I would start with housing as what can we do next year and next 2 years under G that really could have a tangible impact on the problem.
And the you just made the case for the housing strategy, that G3, Jeff. So that's the kind of thing you're talking about, is the need that was identified behind that.
Just to pick up on that, I'd say yes, I generally agree in principle with what Jeff just said. Incidentally, I think Eco Northwest just released a report, I think last week, that talks a lot about underproduction of housing in the state of Oregon. I think there's a lot of interesting data there that we can mine from. Generally in support, I am support with Katie's idea about maybe a more concerted approach on the East Portland side. And briefly, a comment on something I don't see here, but I might have missed it. I think before I came in this commission, I recall there was a briefing to this commission about seismic retrofit, and that would have affected a lot. I mean, depending on which direction that went, would have affected a lot, existing commercial buildings. Is that something that is led by this bureau? Is it other bureaus leading it? And if so,
well, that was led by the Office of the Bureau of Emergency Management.
Okay.
So that was not one of our projects.
Okay, so that was
and
just
that yeah.
Okay.
Andre?
I agree with East Portland. Housing as a strategy, try to figure that out. I want to pick up where Chris and kind of go back to my roots of transportation and say, I've realized in the past probably year about the smart cities and the transportation and the mode change, how fast that is occurring and how fast it's probably going to accelerate because of the money in it. Just the amount of money in autonomous vehicles and the adoption and how fast that is occurring is phenomenal, even to the investors. And it brings to mind an equity question. And it seems to me the mode split is going to occur in a kind of a method that some people are going to literally be left behind. And how we, in overall transportation, impact whether or not buses are a viable alternative in 5 years. Literally, buses may not be the best way to get around in a city if a lot of people start moving out into alternative modes of transportation, that all of a sudden the mode split occurred for the people that can afford it, and the people that can't are left, even though East Portland is getting better transportation, they're left with a mode of transportation that's not viable. And so figuring out, trying to get ahead of that and figure that out, to me, is connecting the mode split problem Chris talked about in the smart cities, and how do you look at an equity lens around that?
So we're just after 6:15. Can I get everybody to bear with us and stay here till at least 6:30 at this point? Yeah, okay. Mike?
Yeah, I'll just say that I'd like to know more about E4 through 9, and we don't have time to go through that tonight, but I would like to dig into that a bit more in terms of timing and priorities.
Okay, Teresa?
First, I just want to say this is an amazing amount of work. And I do share the concern that's been brought up. Is this all simultaneous work? Or is it tiered? And how does that happen? So I'll just leave that at that spot. The one thing I did want to make a specific comment about is in the housing and economy section. And I agree with Jeff that housing is a big nut to crack, and it's a imperative item. On G5, the anti-displacement, we've spent a lot of time talking about housing production, i.e. new production, but I do also want to make sure that we spend some time on saving housing. We have homeowners and homes that could use some help to remain viable, and whether it's repair oriented stuff so the house is livable, or it's a different form of house sharing that's facilitated so maybe elderly people can find young people that aren't going to take advantage of them, and just create, use what we have in a creative way.
Michelle, do you have anything?
I'll just restate what I've said before. I think housing is a priority, but part of solving the housing is providing more jobs, and you've already identified economic mobility and partnering that. So I would say just keeping our eye on that element of it as well. I know my brother and I just went through helping my mother sell her home, and the equity from that house will fund her next living environment. But that was possible because of a secure job my father had throughout his life. So they're connected, and we just can't lose sight of helping people be more self-sufficient.
And I'll throw a new one out there. How about that? Throughout our work on whether it's Beyond Central City or RIP or Better Housing by Design, and it kind of came up to the surface again in Better Housing by Design, our latest discussion is, I think we've continued to talk about the importance of our centers, yet I think we've kind of hit them with a little bit of a project here and a project here and a project here, and not an emphasis of really understanding each center. And so, for example, when we were talking about, hold it, but where does the R whatever zoning and the mixed multifamily zoning kind of come together, and do we have lots in between, and does that need to be cleaned up? But no, we're not doing a zoning project right now because we did that early. You know what I mean? I feel like we need to come back to some of these areas, and part of this is maybe tied to what DOZA's doing. As we're talking about in DOZA, and it's like, well, what is special about, and you pick the neighborhood, Lentz, Selwood, Division, and how do we make sure that that neighborhood is dealt with in the way that is unique to that neighborhood, yet fits into the whole city plan. And so there's that connection piece that it's a big piece of work, no doubt about it, but that I'm worried we haven't really dealt with. And I'll just kind of leave it at that one. I don't know that it's like a priority this year. I mean, I get that this is something that needs to happen down the line, but I am concerned that we're going to end up with a group of people out in the neighborhoods who are frustrated with the outcome of all the work that we've been doing the last few years if we don't kind of circle back around and make sure that we've really kind of put some focus onto those centers and how that's all really coming together.
So this is very useful. I know it was a lot, and part of it, what I took back tonight, in addition to a list of projects or a list of ideas, is the difficulty in seeing the priorities that are within the work program the way we've kind of described it and have built it, because a lot of what we're talking about is in there. So I'll take that back as we go into the budget development process now and do a revamp. And we'll make an attempt to bring back the results to share with you all so you can see how it sort of worked through the filter, the budget, and to do that before we get to City Council, because that's ultimately where the budget decisions are made. We can only put out our options. So.
Can I reflect on this process for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Please.
So it seems to me that a lot of us have been clamoring for commission participation in this, and tonight was a good session, but it's a snapshot in a dynamic process that's ongoing, and the process has certain culmination points. The Budget Advisory Committee will drive to what gets recommended to council, what council adopts, and that kind of locks in what we do for the next year. But I think it's important for the commission to get regular updates on this 3-year vision, and to Jeff's point, I think the piece that's still missing is the inception of projects getting on this list. And I think there are commissioners that have passions around some areas where they'd like to be part of that inception. An example for me is I've been able to watch the inception of the next streetcar line because I sit on a body that worries specifically about that, and I could kind of see how it gets funneled towards BPS and where BPS gets its action around that. But there are, all of these things have some kind of inception process that's causing them to show up here. And I wonder if it wouldn't be useful to find ways for commissioners to kind of get a view into those processes or get attached to those processes for the things that they're passionate about. I don't know how other people feel about that, but it feels like this is 3/4 baked by the time it gets to us. And I think some of us are frustrated that we're not getting our teeth into it a little earlier in the process.
Well, it's a 3-year work program. So and also the thing to keep in mind is to influence year 3, influence year 4. We restricted ourselves to a list tonight that I felt there was a call for action in 1920. Like that one. So we should broaden this up so that we're keeping these ideas and discussion flowing, so that we can head towards some of these targets rather than just immediately pivot. Because it's a good discussion to keep going.
Yeah, I think some of us don't know how to influence years 4 and 5. That's
for years 4 and 5. You've had a lot of discussion on next year, and we've heard that influence, and we heard that influence going into this, and we're interested in the outer years as well.
So I guess I would add, I think we continually, as we have deliberations, bring up, it'd be great to work on that at some point. And I'm as guilty probably as everybody that I haven't gone through all of our old meeting minutes and pull up all of those points that we kind of keep making. So to me, that's that one inception probably point where somebody here is going, hold it. I think there's a piece missing in what we're talking about, and at some point can we figure out how to make that happen? So maybe coming up with a way to track it when those moments happen.
And also, I think we need to give you feedback on the ideas that came out tonight, because the thing that we're going to grapple with too is understanding the importance of the issue. And some of these things we've been talking about for a while. But when we look at where the development activity in the acute, is concentrated, it's not around some of these things. So it is important, and it does happen sometimes. Like whatever this is it the place we would really want to not do something to be able to go tackle that? Because some of these also will be more effort than what we see for the benefits of the outcome, because they just get thorny. Or we could be more creative and find a way that's more manageable, and we just push it through. That kind of discourse I'm glad to have with the commission as well.
And I think certainly I would also say, besides what happens in the meetings, that any light bulb goes up in anybody's head, send it to Julie, and I think let's get it circulated at some. But I mean, it'd be great for the rest of the commission to know a light bulb went off in somebody's head and they sent the email. So kind of just so we can have that discussion point, and whether it comes up in items of interest and you share it then. I mean, just be a great way to have us all think about it. I saw Eli's hand up, and then maybe not.
Well, I guess in this general, reflecting on the discussion, as Chris was saying, I feel like I was really hopeful, and maybe we can still do this. Well, we had another hour today, ideally, because I would love to delve in as a commission with Chris raises, like, if we really want to meet our modes, what are we going to do? That's a good thing. I think all of us would have things to suggest on. And your idea about doing, looking at our centers a little more, like, it seems like these are fruitful topics that we don't talk to each other about outside a meeting. It's hard to. And I feel like we could, or how we prioritize housing with respect to other things in the work plan. It seems like those are topics that it would be nice to have a little time for us to discuss as a commission. East County could be one of them too, but where we actually dig in a little bit more detail than just like raising, this is the idea I think we should talk about, and then people take notes on it, and then it moves on, and then it relies on one of us to take initiative outside. And so I guess I appreciate that over the past couple of years I've been on the commission, I've lobbed out ideas, and sometimes I can tell people do take notes on it, and they do end up on like the year 3 and 4 lists, which is great. But I think that I still like the idea of carving out a little time in a meeting, not just for tossing ideas out, but actually have a discussion about some of these things that we've identified. We got some pretty good heads around the table.
Joe?
Well, and so making space like that for the commission is something we can look at agendas to try to do. Not in, our agendas are often very full, but that space we haven't made at all. And so when the discussion does come around the work program, there's so many sort of pressures on the work program that I think it truncates the kind of discussion that Eli's even talking about, because to turn an idea like that into something that's actionable that we can pivot on a work program to address requires a higher bar of sort of evaluation and data and sort of review and checking our facts. That's sort of what happens to us as a staff person in trying to actually hear, listen, follow through, and operationalize the priorities that we're hearing from the commission. And if that in some way closes down the commission's discussion, that's an unfortunate thing. The freedom to mind these ideas without us writing it down and worrying about the policy implications and the code implications and actually taking it into where it ultimately would lie, I think may limit your discussion, if that makes sense. So.
Any other comments? Not seeing anybody's hand raised. We are adjourned. Thank you.